So last time I drove Lorenzo's Mini, it was sitting at 520 wheel horsepower on E60, 10.5 to 1 compression, a ton of boost. To me, the limit of what a front wheel drive car should really be putting down to the road, if it can put it down at all. And Lorenzo's gone through years and years of work to get to that point, as you guys may have seen in the previous videos. But today, something struck me from what he had previously said to me, and that was, if an OEM part if you haven't proved the limit of an OEM part, why are you changing it? Don't change it. So now, as he's creeping closer to 600 wheel horsepower, my question is, what has he been able to keep from that OEM setup to reach those goals? And what are even his goals? Is it just to hit that 600 wheel horsepower, or is there something more? Let's go see Lorenzo.
Hi guys, my name is Lorenzo. I'm the owner of the RPM Power here in British Columbia. I got enough critique and compliments. I decided to showcase what I have in my car and maybe expose some secrets and some things that you don't get to see every day. I don't build the cars to break world records. I build them to last. I build them to go far. And for record, I have around 40 cars running in between 450 to 500 wheel horsepower. And some of them have driven from Vancouver, BC, all the way down to Louisiana and Virginia and California, and nothing broke and nothing happened. And not that I try to compliment myself, but that can reflect the R&D that is involved into what happens in this engine bay. From the customer point of view might be simple, but to deliver this is a lot of stress and a lot of pressure to do it to that extent. My personal goal with the car is I just needed a little bit of torque left to fulfill the end of the power band and see if it can go to the 600 wheel horsepower mark. I'm gonna lie to myself if I will say, oh yeah, it will do it 100%, because it's not like that. The key factor that makes these cars out of my hands and out of my company move fast is not by putting a lot of boost through them, it's to build them efficiently. Speaking about efficiency, highest horsepower, I don't care about records, the results that I've made. It just happened to, this is where the evolution of my own product went step by step, step by step. I never tried to go just here and leave like a middle area gray.
Yeah, you're
I went into steps on breaking things on purpose, understanding which parts stay OEM, which don't stay OEM, and addressing what needs to be addressed. And for reference, this car ran 6.7 seconds, 100 to 200, and it never ran more than 30 pounds of boost.
100.
If you see the dyno graph, you will never believe that torque band came out of a 1.6 engine. It's very hard to do, and there's so much engineering and testing and fine tuning the products to bring it there. Turbos that go into the packages that I offer from here, they are specifically tailored and engineered for the engine and entire application. So in this setup, the turbo got some upgrades. It's not the same turbo that made 520 wheel, it's slightly bigger. I'm not a fan of the Garrett G series. They are great turbos, however, I don't find it suitable for this engine. I think the GTX Gen 2, if you want to stick with the Garrett, is the most suitable. However, I've tried the Garrett turbos out of the box and I did not have good experience, because like I mentioned, you need something that is truly tailored to the engine and everything that is attached to it. All our turbos are engineered and manufactured here in British Columbia. I have a good partner at Spectrum Motorsport, great friend of mine with so much knowledge and so much experience that it's not always like how big is the brand you choose to work with. To wrap up, what I'm trying to do here is I want to squeeze everything left out of the stock ECU. And yes, I know there is 2 cars that are faster than this. They are in Greece. Huge respect. Every project deserves its respect regardless what it takes to get there. But the difference is that I want to highlight, because there's so much talk about it. Again, I'm running a JCW factory ECU for a North American market with a mass airflow, and it's in full OEM shape. There is not a single sensor change. There is not a single sensor trick. It's just exactly how it is. This makes the power it makes a lot more based on knowledge than just send it. There is no send it. Guys in the European market are a bit more lucky than we are, because the early Cooper S's don't have mass airflow sensor. It's just a speed density based ECU, and it's a lot easier to deal with. We'll see the new turbo probably gonna add some leg, which will work into my favor with traction. Hopefully it will be worth it by leaving some torque on the table and adding some more power to the top end. Do you need this as a customer? No, you don't need. I'm doing this for personal reasons and knowledge and how to say, challenges that I enjoy to do. There are some slight changes in the head. I don't want to talk about them, as I just don't like celebrating until I achieve results to celebrate. Because like there's so many people that are copying you these days, but I've also understood that you can copy but you can't paste. There's a lot more, and the more time you put in it, you discover that the more you know, the more is to know. So I've added external gas temperatures per cylinder. I've managed to add a lot of things in this car through some products offered by CanCheck. They have really good selections of products. Like I'm using their EGT through CAN, which makes it so simple, a lot less stuff required to wire in and to add it into the ECU. This engine bay is obviously very limited, and it's already pretty busy here where there is no room to add anything else, but there is a different reason why I added those sensors. They also have really good input expander. So in my case, Max ECU can only support an X amount of inputs, like physical inputs, but it has really good firmware on a CAN bus side. So I've have so many channels added from the factory ECU via CAN, and that helped me to not rely on a lot of external sensors. Really great products. I enjoyed working with them. Making 400 to 450 foot-pounds of torque with stock sleeves. So it's a closed deck that we developed here. It's stock sleeves, factory JCW gasket, and just ARP 2000. Never lifted a head, never had any issues with any of that. Most annoying part I had to deal with was the drive belts. In factory shape, the tensioner sits in this spot, and what happens is the belt doesn't provide a good overlap over the alternator, and the tension is very, very high. When you start to go past 300 foot-pounds of torque, there's a lot of voltage load that puts a lot of strain on the belt, and it makes it kind of slip and it gets hot. And when you shift gears, the motion from the engine and the stress makes the arm move up and down, and it keeps slicing the belt. So for example, when I got my car past 350 foot-pounds of torque, we couldn't finish a 10 minutes dyno session. We would consistently break belts and like couldn't figure out if it's a pulley, if it's something else. But all it was just the tensioner design. And I had to redesign to come up with a mechanical tensioner where you can adjust the preload on the belt and just don't run it stiffer than it needs to be, and adding maximum overlap over each pulley so there is no slippage under heavy acceleration. I wanted to show this car with the front end off, but it will make it fool you. You would think, oh wow, there is so much room, but it's not. So I decided to leave it on. I took the bumper off.
Yeah, you're not fooling me. I mean, to me,
So
this is already an incredibly tight engine bay, and then you're
it is
somehow fitting all this stuff very meticulously in here.
It is. So clearances in this engine bay is like there was a fighting for every adjustment of 5 millimeters, 10 millimeters. And like every product was designed to fit alike, to clear things, to move, to compensate for the engine motion. And mainly what I'm happy to say, everything is made in Canada.
More important today than ever before. For sure.
I know, right? April 2nd.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, so everything fits. Also what I changed is I normally don't run the auxiliary coolant pump for the turbo. I managed to add that on. It's pretty tight in there. I can't really display right now. I have to take a bunch of things apart. So I have a lot of sensors in this car as it's used for R&D, so there is no too much data. Catch cans. When do you need catch cans? You need catch cans when you're really putting, again, once you go past like a 300 foot-pounds of torque, depending how your engine is built and what clearances it has, you're putting pressure in the cylinders. Some of that pressure does go into the crankcase. That crankcase pressure needs to be eliminated, or you're creating like a negative load on the other side. Also, with factory valve cover, seals, all that stuff, if the crankcase pressure is not breathing properly, that starts to damage seals, starts to crack plastic, starts to do a lot of unnecessary things where you basically shortening the life of certain components. So with the billet valve cover that I designed, it has a better flowing PCV system. The only annoying part with catch cans, now you have to drain them. Depending on how much you drive it, how much boost you're putting it. Catch cans that we have room to fit here are very small. Another reason why you don't want any of these blow-by to go back into the intercooler is just pollutes the quality of the air entering the engine. So now instead of atomizing fuel and air, now you have some oil vapors that degrade the burn quality. Radium makes fluid lock catch cans. I like them and I don't like them. I like them for the PCV side, like if you're cruising a lot, you have a lot more crankcase ventilation travel back into the intake manifold. So if you go on a long trip, you'll be annoyed draining that catch cans because you'll have to go to the gas station to fill up on a gas tank. You'll have to drain your catch cans. That's how much fluid it will be there. Like the N14, I would say there is about 200 milliliters of fluid traveling through the crankcase ventilation on the intake side per 1,000 kilometers, plus minus depending on the environment, if it's colder, if it's not colder. So if you forget to drain, that fluid will get back into your intake. Radium has a catch can where if the fluid fills up, it blocks the deposits in the can, so they're not allowed to be sucked in. So it's just now the blow-by gases go into the intake manifold, but they go in a vapor shape, so it's not dangerous to hydrolock your motor with your own catch can. What I don't like about those catch cans is I don't like them on the vented side, because they are not so efficient on holding fluid the way they made it. There is no free lunch, right? So there are some trades off to it's good for this, can I be good for that? So if you run it in this fashion, it makes a mess because it doesn't get a chance to deposit that fluid in the can, so it just spits it everywhere. And when you run it vented with the filter, you actually get to see is that fluid pushed out. If you run it recirculated, you'll think you're collecting everything in the catch can, and every time you look, it's like there's not much fluid, but all your fluid just gets pushed back into the charge system. So for R&D purpose, this served well. I manufacture them, they are not on the website, but if you see something here that you would want for your car, just shoot me an email and I will try to get back to you as soon as I can and prepare something for you.
The intercooler, Oil cooler, radiator, is all that stuff the same as the 520 wheel horsepower setup?
Correct.
Okay.
So oil cooler is very efficient. Everything is made here from scratch. And once the bumper is on, you literally have paper clearance, but somehow everything fits and doesn't rub. Intercooler is the same. Like I said, I always run washer fluid for cooling. I will lift the vehicle in the air so you can see my plumbing down there. I came up with the idea to anodize everything in green since the car is green, and people start making fun that the Hulk came back to life. This is the factory washer fluid. Is all plumbed with PTFE lines. You don't really need PTFE lines, and I have a love-hate relationship with them. The pump is just a snow performance pump, 300 PSI for extreme environment. There's one nozzle that goes into the charge pipe after the intercooler, and one nozzle goes before the turbo compressor. Everything is controlled by the max ECU, everything. The tables created to control this are basically based on the intake temperatures. If the temperatures of the intake in a weather like outside stay below 30 degrees Celsius, there won't be any washer fluid used. Another thing that I redesigned here is one of the AC lines. This is something new. I still have to test it, make sure it works and no leaks. Oil filter relocation kit. So if you're familiar with a car, the oil filter sits in a completely different spot. In my car it sits here, and if you see, all the plumbing is got enough room for all the engine moving. It's secured with, it's like a true OEM plus kind of speaking.
Totally.
Not very modified, right? Just a little bit.
Is this oil relocation kit, I saw this just when it was on the stand. It looks, I mean, it's a beautiful piece, but is just purely packaging issues, basically?
Right, so the whole reason for this is that's the way the filter sits in the factory shape.
Gotcha.
So when you try to fit a tubular exhaust manifold, it makes an absolute nightmare for the guy that has to fabricate it, and there is no room. I've removed and installed the engine in this car so many times, but it becomes annoying when you need to drop your engine for different reason and you have to unplumb all this stuff. So I'm like, how do I make this even more simple so when I need to drop the engine, I can disconnect everything here and not deal with all the plumbing over there. So this is all hardline, fully CNC machine. It's like 7 pieces puzzle. Don't ask me how much everything costs here, because I will ruin your whole experience.
Yeah, don't ask Lorenzo to replicate this build for you.
Like you see, I have stock intercooler in this car, and I've never had overheating issues with regardless how much power we push, and even a couple of my customers' cars that I've built that are tracked regularly. I believe the efficiency comes in when the oil and coolant heat exchanger is eliminated, so you're not using a hot fluid to cool another not so hot fluid. So the fact that now the oil cooling has an external cooling system, it doesn't put so much stress on the cooling system, and it's been pretty good.
See, this is when you say don't replace an OEM part unless you know the failure point. You're literally just taking stress away from this.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow, and it's made it more efficient.
Correct, yeah. So all the other mounts are stock. This is the only engine mount that it's upgraded.
Gotcha.
Another thing that it's not the same, since you drove it last time, I have a titanium exhaust now. So half of it is in stainless steel and half of it is titanium. Wow. Dawson at Spectrum Motorsport did a great job fabricating it.
It's beautiful.
Keep this section in stainless steel because there's a lot of moving things here, and titanium is not really suitable for a lot of stress, and I don't want to deal with cracking and adjusting, trying to do this one time and not to deal with it. Another thing that I did is I recirculated my screamer pipe, so no more screamer pipe.
See, that's you're trying to make it a little bit more simple.
Right, and the reason was not because I don't like it, I love it. I had to switch some plumbing around, and I had to move the blower valve at the bottom facing down this way. I connected the factory auxiliary coolant pump, so I got a little bit more plumbing and brackets made up top where it made me change things, so I don't have a lot of room to run everything I want to run. So the conclusion was to utilize the space where the screamer pipe was located to put a blower valve there.
High flow cat, no cat, or and then just a resonator?
This is an ultra quiet vibrant resonator and a Tycon muffler.
Nice, okay.
Lucky enough, we don't need to run cat where we live.
Technically speaking.
Yeah, but considering how much this car is being driven, not really putting that much mileage. It's only driven in the nice weather.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Speaking about the cats, the new downpipe comes with all different options of cats, even the EPA approved one. So for those that need to run a catted downpipe, that is available. Besides that, I spent the past 2 years tailoring a new ECU setup that will finally give me the ability to support my customers that want to run full flex fuel, to have better safety margins in the ECU and have it less complex for the user, where you don't need to switch maps, you don't need to do a lot of user interference. Just put the type of fuel you want to run in your car and everything else will be done on its own. Prior to that, I'm pretty sure you guys seen I had a fuel tech in my own car. It was a great setup, but was extremely complex. And on a firmware side, the concept of the fuel tech is really good. The fact that it has a nice screen and you can do so many things, it's not really oriented for a piggyback system that can be easily paired with the factory ECU. So the amount of work involved in that, I couldn't justify to try to make another setup for a customer, because the cost of it is just, might as well at that point buy a standalone ECU.
So is that what you've done now?
So what I've done is I got to work with the Max ECU. I've had amazing support from those guys. I got on board with guys from CanCheck. So I invested a lot of time just to develop some cool stuff for the community with a nice digital display integrated to the factory ECU and to the secondary ECU. You can see pretty much everything you need to see and need to know. When you run a piggyback system, a lot of times you don't really know what the piggyback system is doing if you don't have a laptop. It's more helpful when you have a screen that you can visualize every time you get into your car. If there is something wrong, you'll get a warning light, besides by, let's say something doesn't work right and you're just saying, I think something is wrong. It's like an OEM plus integration without making the car look too busy with harness, with plumbing and all that kind of stuff. So I achieved amazing result. Got a couple cars running 500 wheel horsepower. The ethanol setup is, how to say, it's just a very good fuel that helps to run these motors a lot more aggressive. And it's also nice to run a bigger turbo that it helps with spooling, and you can get the shaft speed sooner in a more efficient compressor map. It's designed in the digital world first for the fitment, but functionality is, I spend my time probably on like 4 or 5 different ECUs. If I remember, this car was making 455, 460 wheel back in 2020 when
2020.
we filmed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I started with an ECU microskirt, which was good to control fueling, but everything else is just a very weak ECU. However, that knowledge contributed as a start to get onto the fuel tech. And fuel tech visually approached me that it's got a nice screen, you have a nice display, and like I mentioned, you have something to see what happens in between the two ECUs. However, the amount of work that I put into that fuel tech and the amount of knowledge and challenges that went into it, it was insane. Because fuel tech, my car was doing boost by gear, where fuel tech to do boost by gear, you have to wire in physical sensors per wheel. So I had to come up with different sources and getting signals out of the CAN bus and broadcasting it into a different module, then use that module to convert the signal into a 5 volts reference signal, and then connect it to the fuel tech. Then the fuel tech needs to be calibrated. So just to do like boost by gear, it was insane amount of work. Then another annoying part was the speed of detecting the gear. It had some kind of delay. So when you shift speed, even if the next table for the boost is with higher boost, you physically get into the next gear faster than the ECU would understand that you are in the next gear. So technically this car is a lot faster than what the numbers showed, but you just couldn't get the functionality to do that. This car has mass airflow sensor, and it's not possible to remove it because it's a hybrid style ECU. I don't want to get too detailed because I'll be speaking here for the rest of the day. If you're familiar with clamping a map sensor, that doesn't work in this car. By clamping the map sensor, yes, you clamping the signal to not go to its full amplitude, but the ECU is not just using that sensor to detect what happens in the background because it's using load. And basically, you have to accept an application to an extent where it's livable. I managed to get a Cooper S into a 500 wheel horsepower zone, which was absolutely impossible for the past 3 years. So now we have a car in New York, a good friend of ours, Damon. He's a good workshop in New York called Mini Monsters. So we made his car to 500 wheel horsepower. It actually happened today before I came to the workshop to make this video. So it's pretty cool. The knowledge is there, the possibility is there. The fastest car in Greece, it runs a full standalone ECU with deleted port injection. Like you see, it's a tight engine bay, and normally when you run an atmospheric blow valve with a mass airflow, there is a huge enrichment happening when you let off the throttle. For that specific reason, if you note, the blow valve is before the turbo, so it basically keeps it further away from that pressure being bled back into the mass airflow. Because when you let off, that surge that you hear, it actually makes its way back into the mass airflow, so every time you shift, there's a bunch of fuel being dumped. So if you look on the lambda during that pull, you're going from 0.77 to like 0.6. It's not something you can feel, but you can see in the log, and that delays the shift point to have a very good acceleration under shifting and to bring the power back up. With the fuel tech, I did not have many options to log and adjust those areas to do what it needs to do. I spent a lot of time building the firmware for the Max ECU, and I managed to bring so many valid channels out of the stock ECU and have correction maps inside the Max ECU controlling fuel in the spots where before it was not even possible. Because if it was just for myself to make one-off very fast car, I would have had a Motec ECU in this car a long time ago. But it goes back again. You buy an standalone ECU, it doesn't come with anything. You have to build a firmware. The firmware from Motec is very old, as there is not enough market from these cars to have those engineers invest into building a firmware that even has at least flex fuel up to today's standards. So I'm trying to make something that works for me and it works for community that I have behind me, and I am able to support it reliably. Tune cannot beat a poor hardware package. So you have to start with an efficient package. Stay away from the bigger the better. It's not true. You're dealing with a 1.6 engine. To make a 1.6 engine leave and deliver 500 wheel horsepower with a torque band where there is virtually zero lag, and you have full torque close to 400 foot-pounds from 3,800 RPM to the red line of 8,000, that cannot be taken for granted. That's very, very hard to achieve. it's a number that it's hard to get, but it's harder to get if you don't have the right things in your engine bay. The highest AR housing that I would recommend to go with, it would be the 0.63 AR. That will keep your power band where it needs to be. Another thing that the market is flooded with, a lot of knockoffs intake manifolds, and it just blows my mind. I've had enough time to see how they perform, and there is a reason why on the R400 TS I always tell people just use the factory intake manifold. It will do what it takes to do. When our intake manifold was developed, it wasn't just for the strength of being billet and not cracking randomly here and there and dealing with issues alike. The point was to make a product that it's better than stock. If we cannot get it there, it just won't exist. Intake manifold dictates again the power band, and it dictates again the power under the curve, which is more important. So by having a wrong sized intake for the application, all you're doing, you're shifting your power band. And in most of the cases, when you try to add a lot of top end, you're giving up everything what happens underneath the power band. So the ideal world to create an intake manifold that truly performs, you have to start with the head, then tailor the intake manifold setup to support the head. That's why like stuff that leaves out of here, it works, because there are no skipped steps in R&D. Right, so what's here on the stand is, you guys seen a prototype in the previous video. So all that experience taken out of there is basically translated into this, but reducing cost by 60-70%. We tried to use that experience to create something on an OEM Plus package that works for everybody. OEM has a really calculated approach in mind when they built this car. Exhaust manifold has a really good exhaust pulses overlap. So what that does, it kind of like keeps the exhaust flow in an overlapping balance to retain shaft speed where it needs to be on a map efficiency on a compressor side and bring it up to those speeds as fast as possible. So we did some reverse engineering and trying to understand what happens, and we redesigned hot side from scratch to match the factory exhaust manifold. It's like an OEM approach but sized differently. It is sized enough to drop back pressure to the level where I managed to push this to 470 wheel on a stock exhaust manifold. It was just responding to the tuning until back pressures become issue. You have a 48 millimeter compressor that is bolted to the stock exhaust manifold, and you can have it at full boost at 3,800 RPM. It utilizes external wastegate, and the reason why it's on external wastegate is mainly to increase the longevity of this product. I'm really doing my best to have your investment worth it on a lifetime, hopefully, because if you spend the money to buy this turbo, I don't expect it to be, how to say, required to be replaced because it failed this or failed that in the next year or two. But too many moving parts they tend to wear. I've been using TurboSmart products for many years. They offer great support. This is a 40 millimeter gate, flows really well paired to this. Don't follow the boost, look at the torque numbers. So I try not to run them more than 330, 350 foot-pounds of torque. The reason behind that is at a certain level of power in the power band, you will start accounting the back pressure issues. If we translate it to horsepower, somewhere up to 430 horsepower, and to combat that back pressure, you need to run ethanol to make the charge cooler. The most impressive thing is we run these on stock engines. So for reference on the data analysis from doing so, running this turbo at the same power level like a stage 2 or stage 3 car, it actually puts the engine in a better thermal environment than the stock turbo, because it flows so much better, it holds less heat trapped into the exhaust and not backfeeding it into the cylinders, and there is no losses in spool, like there is virtually no lag, and it's very easy to achieve 300 to 330 wheel horsepower on a stock engine without harming the engine. Everything is accounted for. This is a recirculated setup, so if you don't want a screamer, it can be with a screamer or recirculated. This kit comes with a very friendly install plug and play wiring harness with a sandwich, and for most guys that don't want to spend too much money and they don't want a 500 wheel horsepower, this will make you smile and make you enjoy your car.
Well, and two, just looking at this, I'm guessing that if somebody installed this, if they ever wanted to revert back to factory,
very easy.
They could do that.
Yeah, very easy. And the turbo is also designed to use OEM gaskets for the exhaust manifold side, studs. Everything is, how to say, interchangeable with the OEM gasket. So you're not dependent on us if you need to service something or remove something to order it from us. You just follow the OEM catalog. I think that's a great philosophy to make an application easy serviceable. Makes everybody's life easier, including myself, and you still enjoy a nice project. And when it's all together, you can actually fool your friends that you have a factory turbo, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's a stock Mini. Marcus mentioned, yes, so the gearbox has an updated diff. I believe when we filmed the car back in 2020, it was on a stock diff. Right now, the OS Gaiken, I love their products. I use their clutch and the diff. The only downside, they both are extremely noisy. If you know what you have in it, you will respect it and you will choose it for the performance and functionality. But be ready, if you're driving with a friend or something, they will be concerned that your car is broken.
Well, yeah, you're deep into kind of what people would call race car territory.
Right, yeah. And another thing I changed is I switched from KW to the Bilsteins. KW's a good, comfortable suspension. I think Bilsteins are more firm on adjusting the stiffness. It just seems like the car is more planted to the ground with the Bilsteins. Like regardless how much adjustment I try to put in the KW, I never got it to be planted enough. Never broke any axle. Like that's if you have a OEM axle in a fresh condition or like not really exposed to a rusty environment, I never had any problem. I had more problems with so-called 600 horsepower rated axles by people that don't even build 600 horsepower minis. Those would probably last 5 minutes in this car. Another thing where everybody asks me, is this gearbox built? No, this is a stock gearbox with an LSD in it. Build here, I have lots interesting upcoming. I have B48 stuff in the works. I have B58 stuff in the works, and I have S58 stuff in the work. We have a brand new G80 shop car. I'm sure we're gonna make something cool for those cars. The quality of the build and the details of the build is, you might not even see this in some Lambos. And don't need to be exotic to be treated like exotic, right? It's an opportunity to showcase your skill, to showcase your passion, and learn from it. And that's exactly what I had the opportunity to do with this car.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Lorenzo.
Well, thank you for viewing this. I appreciate all the support and all the feedback. We'll stick around and maybe get to drive this car again if it makes the results that will be worth to share. If not, we'll carry on with the other projects.
Lots of cool stuff coming. Hopefully you guys enjoy this video. Another like incredibly deep dive into the infamous green car. Will we see 600 wheel horsepower? I don't know. When Lorenzo hits the dyno, I kind of want to be there. So I don't know, maybe if there's...
Maybe
there's a time.
you're welcome to join me.
Yeah, join you and Sean working your guys' magic.
That's right.
Yeah, if you haven't already, if you want to actually dive in more to all the initial mods that Lorenzo did, we have a ton of videos we've shot over the years, so all the links will be down in the description. We'll see you guys next time. If you want to order any parts from RPM Powered, I've included a link in the description that sends you directly to Lorenzo's email. Just let him know you're coming from Roads Untraveled. And if you want a custom build from Lorenzo, if you want him to work on your car, there's a discount there for you as well. Thanks guys for watching. We'll see you soon.